I will try to tell you the truth. It's kind of funny talking about Lake Powell because there are various ways of looking at it. I knew about Grand Canyon and was involved in Grand Canyon a long time before really becoming familiar with Lake Powell, and I learned to really dislike Lake Powell. But I ended up moving to Page, and after a while discovered that while it was an amazing way to get into the backcountry, and then I kind of realized, I kind of like the lake too. And then I ended up doing 35 years of photo workshops on the lake. And I have to conclude it's an amazing place, very interesting, good or bad. What I'm going to show you has some photographs that were provided by the Bureau of Reclamation and also Elmer Urban, who was a Bureau employee, just private pictures that he took. I also want to start out with some numbers here. Right now the lake is at elevation 3545. We're a little bit below and dropping. It's never been that low since the lake filled. It's 10 feet below where it was in 2005. The winter low is expected to be somewhere around 3517. Power production ends at 3490. Here's one thing that really astonishes me. The lake has dropped almost 100 feet in the last 4.5 years. So in July of 2017, it was at 3636, and it's less than 10 feet above that now. Here are some other things that I try to get the latest information on, but some of this is a month old and things are changing fast. There's now a new state line launch ramp that just opened on October the 1st. It is supposedly going to be good as they follow the lake down, placing more concrete all the way down to 3450, down almost 100 feet if necessary. Every once in a while, that ramp will be closed or partially closed to continue pouring concrete still lower. Wahweap Marina may be reconfigured to fit into a shrinking Wahweap Bay. Decisions are being made on what will be done at Antelope Point Launch Ramp, possibly moving Bullfrog Marina and replacing the Halls Creek Launch Ramp. Some of those decisions may have been made or partially made, but this is the latest information I have. And also a new takeout ramp is being planned for Hite. Okay, well, I have some pictures for you. After 35 years of photo workshops in Grand Canyon or in Lake Powell, I've seen some amazing things out there, and I just can't say enough about what a wonderful location it is for a photo workshop. This is in Last Chance Canyon. Until a few years ago, there was an unusual place where there were dinosaur tracks, not the tracks themselves, but casts on the underside of an overhang. And they lasted quite a while, but then about 5 years ago, they suddenly fell off. So what a shame. They were about 100 feet above the lake level at that time. There are a couple of places called Fat Man Squeeze. This is the one that's a tributary of Face Canyon. Back, I think, in the 1950s, a fellow from Tucson and his wife started leading trips into the area that surrounds the future of Lake Powell, into Rainbow Bridge. And that was Eber Glendenning and Lorna Glendenning. And I ended up doing about 20 years of backpacks with them, including a lot of unusual routes up from the lake into the backcountry and then on usually to Rainbow Bridge. Some very talented people are on the lake, at houseboaters in particular. This is the closure of the Colorado River when the dam was being built. So the diversion tunnels had already been in. And in the background, that dark area is the lowest most diversion tunnel gate. And here they're pumping or pushing boulders and sand into the river to cut it off. Sorry, my fault. Two 41-foot diameter diversion tunnels were cut or blasted into the rock. And then something that was unexpected, there was an inner gorge at Glen Canyon that was made up of this fluted rock. It was still Navajo sandstone, but looks a lot, at least in this black and white photograph, looking like Vishnu Group rocks in Grand Canyon. This is what the future bottom of the dam would look like, or what it was setting on. Here's where the power plant is going to go. These are the foundations for the towers that will support the penstocks coming out of the dam. And right here is where the dam will go. And the first bucket of concrete in 1960. This is 127 feet below the floor of the old river. The penstock tubes heading from the dam towards the power plant. Aerial photograph looking down on the dam and how it's keyed into the walls of Glen Canyon. There was a coffer dam on both the upstream side and downstream side of the dam site. The upstream coffer dam was 300 feet high, trying to take care of any big flood that would come down during the years that the dam was under construction. And after the gates had been closed, the beginning of Lake Powell began to form, and it overtopped that 300-foot high coffer dam upstream. And as far as I know, this is the only picture that was made of it. This is where river runners were taking out while the dam was being constructed. This is the mouth of Cane Creek. The greatest story ever told was being filmed in the final days of Glen Canyon. And this is where John the Baptist had his baptism sign of Christ in the Colorado, not the River Jordan. Now, this next picture is a little confusing to me. The Bureau says it's one thing, but it sure looks like something else to me. River runners were taking out, and a lot of them disappeared. I think this is the Bureau getting even with river runners who were complaining. But the Bureau says this was a scene that came from the greatest story ever told. Rainbow Bridge was a problem for the future Lake Powell because we had stopped a dam in Dinosaur National Monument saying it was not worth putting a reservoir in a national monument, but actually the same thing was going to happen. Lake Powell was going to flood Rainbow Bridge National Monument. So there were a lot of discussions about what to do. This is David Brower with a Bolex camera, and also Stuart Udall, Secretary of the Interior, at Rainbow Bridge, discussing what needed to be done to try to save the monument. And one of the plans was build a barrier dam downstream from Rainbow Bridge outside of the monument to keep Lake Powell from backing up into the monument. But depending on exactly where that barrier dam was going to be located, it might also require a barrier dam to be placed upstream to keep water from collecting on the upstream side of that downstream dam. And then to keep water from overtopping that dam, a tunnel was going to have to be driven through a mesa over into Forbidden Canyon. And it would have destroyed the area. Rainbow Bridge would have been saved, but the area would have been destroyed, building all these roads, power lines, gravel pits. Lake Powell, when it filled up in 1980, jet valves fully open. And then the dam, the damage that was obvious after the flood of 1983, all of the debris, the rebar, the boulders that were in the diversion tunnels, and the biggest hole from cavitation in the diversion tunnels, all of this had to be filled with concrete in order to repair the dam. There are the famous 1-inch plywood flashboards on top of the gates that held back the upper 4 feet of Lake Powell during the high water of 1983. Just some other surrounding landscapes of Lake Powell and flooded canyons, 50-mile canyon. This is an unusual place. It's on an island, or what was an island until recently, across from Labyrinth Canyon. This is actually the floor of the Colorado River from somewhere between 1 million and 2 million years ago, the sculptured bed. And the reason it's been preserved is that it was covered in cobbles by the river, and then the river moved to a slightly different position, cut down another several hundred feet. The old floor was preserved, but when the lake came up, the wave action tore apart the cobble covering, and now that old surface has been revealed again. Mud cracks, Last Chance Canyon. Pool Canyon, this place just barely survived the high water of 1983. 50-mile canyon again. On the top of Weathering Pit Ridge, cross-bedding patterns. Dominguez Rock. 50-mile canyon. Rock Creek Canyon. All of this is far out of the lake right now. Also, about 15 years ago, we were on the lake during a kayaking trip, and this is Dave Panu kayaking at the foot of a temporary waterfall, tributary of Bridge Canyon. Reflections and wave patterns at Wahweap. As I said, we had dozens of photography workshops, and they were just wonderful things. And I'm not sure they will ever start up again because the lake is low, because we're losing some of the people who were involved in being pilots for us. And it's a new lake out there now. We don't know where to go. We had all these places scoped out, places where we could camp, and now they're gone or they're unreachable. Padre Butte, Padre Island wasn't correct. Rainbow Bridge. There was a National Geographic article when Lake Powell was very young, and high up in this picture, it had kayakers in the foreground, and in the background there was what was called Triangle Cave. Well, that cave was flooded for a long time by Lake Powell, but it's now far above the lake. Labyrinth Canyon. This is where Cathedral in the Desert used to be located. We're kind of located up in the air today, looking at the top of the waterfall. That overexposed rock you see in the center was at the top of the rock of the waterfall in Cathedral in the Desert. Now it's well exposed again, but the floor of the room that you went into in the old Cathedral in the Desert is way higher than it was back before Lake Powell because of all the silt that's been pumped into the room. Antelope Point Marina, Reflection Canyon, Twilight Canyon, Wetherill Canyon, Navajo Mountain, Anasazi Canyon, Weathering Pit Ridge, Rainbow Bridge. I have to say something about Horseshoe Bend. Nobody paid any attention to this place until about 35 years ago. And then the city of Page had to do something because there were car accidents there. One woman was killed in the parking lot by being run over by a bus. The city had to do something about entrance and exit to the area and a parking area. So the city spent $3 million putting in a new parking lot big enough for about 500 cars. And of course, the coronavirus hit shortly after that and closed it down. The Park Service had played a part in it too, because the overlook's actually on Park Service land. This is the old route over a hill on a pleasant day in Page. Just traffic jams. This got really bad during the construction of the new parking lot. But the park put in a new trail and an overlook that just covers part of the rim and just did a great job there. So Glen Canyon Dam, one of its more sophisticated features is 5 plumb lines that lead from the top of the dam down to the foot of it. So if everything else fails, all of the electronics, all of the sensors, they have plumb lines that run from the top of the dam down to the bottom. Inside the dam, there are some foundation tunnels that run horizontally back into the rock from the ends of the dam, and this is right at the joint between the dam that you see in the background and inside the Navajo sandstone. And there are sensors that measure how much the rock is being compressed or relaxed as the lake goes up and down. There are stairways and galleries that run throughout the dam, something like 2 miles worth of ways to get to various places inside of Glen Canyon Dam. A lot of them have to do with being able to get to the boundaries between the dam where it meets the rock. Just in case a leak develops, they will have pretty good access to somewhere close to those points should they develop. This is one of the foundation galleries. 2 new tunnels had to be drilled into the rock in order to repair the spillways in 1983. This is one of those tunnels. They went from the transformer deck into the spillway tunnels. This is the lowest most gallery on Glen Canyon Dam. It's an interesting place. There's a lot of water flowing around. Not an unusual amount for such a big dam, but it's kind of noisy down there because of the water flowing downhill. They go to a sump pump where they're pumped out to the base of the dam on the backside of that grassy area in between the power plant and the dam. I've already pointed out that the coffer dam was 300 feet high, but here's another interesting thing to me. Number one, Glen Canyon Dam is only half as thick as Hoover Dam. And it's already been mentioned today that while the engineers, when Hoover was being designed, were very conservative. So it is 660 feet thick. Glen Canyon Dam is just about half that amount. So by the time we had computer modeling, we realized, gee, maybe we don't have to have so much concrete holding back a lake. The 2 dams are almost exactly the same height. Hoover's only 16 feet higher. Also, when you look from the bridge, for instance, down to the base of the dam and you look at that grassy area, if you can imagine The Washington Monument being built there or sticking up out of the grass there, it would come up almost exactly to the top of the dam. The dam from the grass to the crest is just about one Washington Monument high. But there's 150 feet more dam below the base of that Washington Monument. The most massive part of the dam is below the grassy area. Looking off the cliff just downstream from the dam at a couple of boats going by, a waterfall. And finally, some low water comparisons. In Willow Canyon, the big alcove in Willow in the lake was already down quite a ways, but this is the way it looks today. This is the chamber that's upstream from the waterfall and Cathedral in the Desert. Looking down on the south end of Padre Bay. This is the waterfall that's developed on the San Juan River, kind of the equivalent of the Pierce Ferry Rapid on the Colorado. Lone Rock, when the lake was higher, but Lone Rock as it looks today. This was a picture taken just a month ago. The impressive amount of silt. This is in one of the tributaries that becomes Anasazi Canyon. It's a very short tributary, doesn't drain very much, but the silt level was up way above where these people are standing. And then the lake goes down, and then the flash floods begin sweeping it back downstream to the lake. 1980, when the lake was about as full as it would go, we thought. Wahweap Marina, and you can see the rotunda there on the right. And this is the way it looks today. The rotunda kind of at the near right, lake's down 155 feet. This is the new launch ramp that is close to the old State Line launch ramp. You access it by going down State Line launch ramp. New parking area has been put in, and this is the new launch ramp that will be used as the lake continues to fall. Not only we had trouble with the lake running out of water, but also the marina dangling rope was badly damaged by high winds this spring, so it's been closed all summer. Boaters who are unfamiliar with Lake Powell also have the additional problem of not being able to get gas from midway up the lake. Twilight Canyon. We're looking down the Escalante, so silt has crept way downstream from where the lake was in 1983, and it's almost down to the mouth of Willow Canyon. And in fact, if you were to come up the Escalante and then turn into Willow, you wouldn't get very far before Willow Canyon would come to an end. Oak Bay, this big area that's on the left, is almost now entirely dry. And then David Brower, in the year 2000, participated in a rally in support of decommissioning Glen Canyon Dam. Here he is 40 years after that original picture under Rainbow Bridge. The funny thing was that there was a rally for decommissioning Glen Canyon Dam, and then the Friends of Lake Powell, a different organization, had a rally on the far side of the bridge. So two rallies going on at the same time, and this looked kind of frightening. So the Page police were there, the Park Service police were there, the special events people were there, a highway patrol. They thought a big rumble was going to break out, which would have been epic, but it never happened. The superintendent of Glen Canyon at the time wasn't quite sure how to handle this, but he attended both rallies at different times during the day. Well, that's a summary of what's going on at Lake Powell. Thank you very much.